I mean, that's pretty good. I appreciate that you pimped us out.
You are listening to Chicagoland's finest podcast. The all-new Culture Cast begins now. I'm Nick.
And I'm Jen.
And this is the all-new Culture Cast. We're back again with another edition, as the Gorehound likes to say, who is off tonight because, I don't know, he's retiring or something. I wasn't quite understanding the text he sent me.
But, sure.
Either the Kiwi and I were talking, is it a retirement party he's going to or a class about retirement? So
here's what I'm assuming. I'm assuming that he is going to a class that tells you about everything you should have done 10 years ago so that you can retire 40 years from now.
That was my initial thought on that as well. But when he comes back, assuming he doesn't retire, we'll quiz him on that and find out what we need to know to retire.
Absolutely. We'll just have the all new Culture Cast guide to 401ks.
You're right. But no, today is a very special episode, but they're all special episodes because we're going to be talking about women and minorities representation in media, which has been a fairly hot button topic within recent years, I would think. It's probably always been a hot button topic, but I feel given more pop culture and social development in society, it's become even more of a thing, as it were. And Jen, I specifically want to talk with you on this one-on-one because I know, I would imagine, I don't want to speak for you, but it seems like knowing you, this is something that's probably near and dear to your heart, given your
gender.
Well, not just gender, but like political background and social leanings and things like that. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to discuss the issue with you.
Absolutely.
So I thought that'd be kind of a neat thing. I'm like trivializing. That'd be a neat, jolly good thing to do. But I think it'd be an interesting discussion to have.
It'd be so cute if we talked about minorities. No. No, I think...
how they're ruining this country? No,
I think it's a great discussion to have. You know, anytime we can start talking about, general inequality, but also specifically the inequality that we see. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll come back to it. First, let's do a catch up. What you been watching?
What have you been watching?
Yeah. Not a whole heck of a lot. Gorehound and I originally talked about discussing the movie Venom, which is now on DVD, and I have it sitting there because I rented it from the library, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm sure it's a train wreck, but I know I'm going to love every second of this train wreck. But
it made a lot. Like, I feel like a lot of people were like, "This movie is going to fail," and then it made a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. As long as it's entertaining, I'll be happy. So, but I haven't really been watching much of anything. The shows I usually like to watch, the Kiwi and I are picking up watching Empire, which is super awkward now.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm curious to see how that all plays out and everything else. But I wish I could say I've been watching stuff, but I really haven't, and at least nothing immediately jumps to mind. So what about you, Jen?
So let's see. Okay, so right now we're recording this on a Thursday night. And tomorrow night is going to be the last episode ever of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. A TV show I've been watching since the beginning. Sort of fell off in the third season. But, they're coming back strong for the ending. So if you haven't watched it, is a musical about a woman who basically decides she's going to fix her life by finding her boyfriend from when she was 16 and moving to his, weird small town in Nowheresville, California. And, it really deacons a lot of tropes that you see in the media, starting with the idea of, the crazy ex-girlfriend. It's also a musical, so it is right up my alley. So the show is ending tomorrow, and I'm not having, but my friend is having a goodbye party for the show. So it's going to be a couple of us watching, drinking themed drinks, eating giant pretzels, and...
Do they do that on the show? Like eat giant pretzels?
Yeah. So she moves out to West Covina, and she's walking down the boardwalk singing about how she, moved here because West Covina is great, and she didn't move out here for Josh, even though she definitely moved out there for Josh. And she rides a giant pretzel across, the sky. It's pretty amazing. So pretzels have always played into the mythology of the show.
I've never watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, though, given my view of the CW superhero shows. I've seen plenty of advertisements for it.
Right. Obviously, you're not better than the show because you watch The Flash.
I like The Flash. But clearly it's not a show that's directed towards me, although I'm sure it's entertaining. I'm always surprised, given the title, there wasn't more backlash, because that to tie into our theme, I guess, a little bit tonight, when you hear the term Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and I one time encountered a real person that got upset when someone uttered the term Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, even though it was being used in a jesting manner, that there wasn't more of a backlash against that title. Now, you probably know this, and I know this, because we're sensible, reasonable people, that the title is meant to be probably a joke given the context of the show, but
right.
There are a lot of, the outrage culture is amazing nowadays, and given that you're in that fandom, was there any backlash against that title when it first came out?
I think part of why I didn't hear too much about it, well, first of all, I'm not on Twitter, so that saves me a lot of energy. Although I do sometimes read BuzzFeed articles that are just pictures of Twitter.
Yeah.
It's great. I honestly, I love those articles when they're like, oh, these celebrities all interacted online. And then I'm like, okay, good. I don't have to figure any of this out. You already just put it in one place for me. You provided a kitten reaction GIF, so I know that I like what I just saw.
So that's what Cardi B was thinking.
So there may have been some sort of backlash, but I think it's one of those things where because it's on the CW and the CW gets 40 viewers a year, they can get away with a lot of stuff that just kind of does not necessarily register with the culture at large. I do feel like if I were to just get on, let's say I'm in Chicago, I'm on the L, I'm just taking a poll, I'm like, has anyone heard of this show? I feel like, first of all, somebody would definitely show me their dick, but second of all, just based on the number of men I've seen jacking it on the L, but second of all, a lot of people would be like, I didn't even know the CW was real, don't you know you can watch TV on YouTube now, you don't even have to own a TV. It used to be when people said, I don't even own a TV, they were bragging about being cultured, and now it just means they watch a lot of YouTubers.
Our hipster generation who's I'm
Absolutely.
above TV. I watch YouTube.
And don't get me wrong, do I waste just hours of time on YouTube? Absolutely. I'm better than YouTube.
Well, I'm glad that show has had a run that's ending.
Right. It's
because
what's
the
great
creator
about
wants
it.
to end. Along those same lines, I've only watched bits and pieces, and I kind of wish I watched more of it because it looks like it's a hilarious show that I would. The show Jane the Virgin, which is also ending this season as well. And the CW, I think, has had a pretty good relationship with their shows that have been either critically successful or monetarily successful. Which,
definitely.
Which I believe Jane and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend both have been critical darlings for them. So that's why they
definitely not nearly enough in terms of viewership. But when you're getting awards, you don't necessarily need the viewership. That's another show. Right. Jane the Virgin is ending at the end of this year, I believe, and then it is ending on its own terms. So I think that's another. That's anytime a show ends. In many ways, we are better than England. I was about to say not politically, although we're not having Brexit, so that's good. That seems like a shit show. But the one thing I think they're better than us at in terms of their media, just saying, okay, this show will last for one season. It will be 6 episodes. At the end of it, you'll feel like you saw an entire story, and then we'll be done.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know where you want to begin with tonight's topic here. It's such a broad topic, and we're two white people, so I'm sure we'll be the experts in talking about this. But
no, but I do try to do my reading. But obviously, if I say anything incorrectly, audience, please forgive me. But I do try to do my reading. But I can't know an experience I haven't had. So
I guess I'll kick us off if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Like one of the things I've been noticing, there's been trends lately in the last couple years where there's like a push to bring more diversity in the different blockbuster movies, for example. And some people are all for it, yay. Some people are very negative towards it for reasons that, for the most part, are perplexing to me. Like they might have like a point at first, and then they like just spiral off to crazy town. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And I don't know why there is such a big. Well, I have theories, I guess, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, why there's such a big negative reaction. Like, take for example the Ghostbuster reboot from a few years ago. Before the cast was even revealed, before probably a page was written, and regardless of what you think of the final product, the minute they announced they were going to do a gender swapped version of Ghostbusters, there was a section of the online population that lost their collective minds.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, why? I mean, like I've seen things that went from Ghostbusters is a boys' property, which I don't think was ever really the case. And this is coming from the number one Ghostbuster fan here. Um,
Absolutely.
that oh, if they have this movie for with girls, what are the guys going to like? I'm thinking a guy can't like a movie like this. I'm
I
not
here
following.
Here's what I'm going to say about that. So you think about like, okay, so we grew up in the 80s, right?
Hmm.
When you think about all the shows in the 80s, there'd be a group of like six kids, and five of them would be boys, and one of them would be a girl. And the girls, main character trait was usually like, like smart or the serious one or something. But there'd always just be one girl and like five dudes. And like the thing is, girls would watch the shows and they would feel like they could connect to the other characters because they kind of had to, right? They only had one lady to pick from. So
Hmm.
you can't just all be the lady, right? You have to you have to say like, "Oh no, I can admire this character. I can admire that character." I think there's a lot of boys out there, specifically white boys, who are under the impression that like they shouldn't have to empathize with other kinds of people. They're
Hmm.
like, if I'm not represent, like there's this very weird disconnect where they're like, representation shouldn't matter for anyone except me. It's very important that I'm always represented. Like get off it, dude. Like you can watch a movie about only black people and you're gonna survive, I promise. And you're gonna if you watch with an open mind and like think about people in terms of being people instead of just that they're objectively not like you're going to say like, oh no, this character and I are actually pretty similar, or whatever. But I think there's a lot of boys who have been raised to be very lazy in their media consumption. You know what I mean? Because they never had to think about other characters because there was always a boy that represented them. So it's like when I see these guys, and I'm not saying this is all men. Obviously, hashtag not all men, hashtag not all white dudes. But there's certainly a percentage of them, and they seem to be very busy on Twitter. And I think it just need to like collectively pull their heads out of their asses and just give some stuff a shot. We're at peak TV. There's more TV than ever right now. It's more available than it's ever been. But I think, that doesn't mean you should just be very lazy with your consumption. That doesn't mean you should only ever watch, media about you.
Well, I agree. I
Yeah,
mean, there's so many things out there, and honestly, I don't know if this makes me good or bad, but I enjoy watching shows, particularly about like African American culture. Or, that's not the right term, but they're clearly geared towards the African American audience because it's not my experience, and
sure.
so it's interesting. And granted, they're fiction shows like comedies and adventure series and things like that,
Hmm.
but like it's not my experience, but I enjoy seeing that stuff because it is an outsider experience for me, and
Oh, definitely.
it's I want to call it a learning opportunity. It's like, oh, so that's what black people are like. They have crazy powers and they fight crime. No, that's Black Lightning, a fictional TV show. But like I like seeing that something um, different from me in a media way.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
um, it, speaking about women in roles, like we've had like within the last 10 years, and quality aside, we've had a lot of big movies that have featured female protagonists, a lot of big mainstream movies featured female protagonists, that I would imagine that by 2019, people would be either more accepting of it or, it wouldn't really blip on their radar. Like, you've had things like Twilight and The Hunger Games and Divergent and more recently...
Well, 3 of the 4 of the Divergent.
Well, yeah, those films kind of had diminishing returns with box office, so... and also, it seems like Shailene Woodley, I don't know how to pronounce
That's a great question. We may never know.
She kind of went off on the deep end a little bit with some weird activism stuff, but which I don't know the full story, so I'm not going to play judge. But and like more recently, things like Wonder Woman and the Star Wars sequels, and most recently Captain Marvel. That you think when they come out with something like, people wouldn't like, it'd be like, oh, okay, it's a female superhero movie. But still, people are, well, I think Captain Marvel had a lot of backlash because of Brie Larson putting her foot in her mouth when trying to explain something. But that's
what did she do?
Well, here's what she was trying to do. And I don't know if she gave a press conference a couple months back, and what she was trying, not a press conference, some awards thing, I don't know, but and what she was trying to communicate was that there needs to be more diversity within film criticism, which is a good thumbs up quality message to say. However, the way she delivered it was extremely condescending and fairly ignorant, because she's like, I don't need 40-year-old, and this is a quote, I don't need 40-year-old white dudes telling me why A Wrinkle in Time wasn't a good movie. That movie wasn't made for them. It was made for people who are of color. We need reviewers like that talking about those movies. Teen reviewers, this. And while she has a point, like, oh, we need more diversity in movie reviewers, why not? I felt her comment was kind of ignorant in the sense that saying to someone you didn't like a movie because it wasn't made for you, I don't think is a valid argument. Because there are a lot of movies out there that are probably not made for 40-year-old white dudes that they give quality reviews to. Things like...
I'm going to push back on you a little bit. Okay. So, I do think, I did not see the press conference, so I can't speak to how her tone went. But I don't think she's wrong about her critique in that, they've done studies. I don't have them at the tip of my fingers here, but overwhelmingly, film criticism is very white and very male. And, that is a problem because, we can sit here and say, oh, they're probably being fair with their reviews. But are they? Like, that's sort of tough. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to quantify if reviews are fair or if people are giving things the same shot that they would. But I do think when you have quality being determined by a monolith, that's a problem. Because even if they are trying to be very fair, they're going to be talking about things that aren't in their experience or in their wheelhouse, and I think that can be a real problem. And that's an easy-to-fix problem, right? You just get voices in there from more divergent experiences. Well, wait, one more thing. No. And I will say, I did see when she was doing one of her, press junkets for Captain Marvel, the reviewer, the interviewer, typical white guy, 30s, whatever. He was like, oh, so I saw the scene in the movie where you were where Captain Marvel, somebody like comes by and tells her to smile. Like, did you go back and add that in after the criticism came out because they posted a movie poster of you and you weren't smiling and a lot of people were really upset about that? And Brie Larson is like, no, that's just the experience of woman. Like, people say that to you. And it was like, it's that kind of like tone deafness that comes from not being able to process other people's experiences. So, I agree with her statement. Again, wasn't there, didn't hear the tone, but like you have another woman asking Brie Larson, like, oh, did you go back and add that scene in? They'd be like, fuck yeah, that happens to me every other weekend. It was just, I think that's a very interesting point she made. And I approve. I think it's really tough for people who are in big blockbuster movies to say kind of controversial things like that. So, overall, I'm going to say, I approve of that. I think we do need more diverse film criticism.
Well, I agree. There's nothing wrong with having more diverse film criticism. The problem, I think, lies, and it's a small problem, and we'll get how it's become a quote unquote big problem. Lies in that when you look at look at films like Beale Street and Fences and Moonlight,
Sure.
and 12 Years a Slave, Selma, critically acclaimed films. Clearly, 40-year-old white dudes were not the target audience for that. I feel her argument her argument in that sense loses a little steam in that when you're looking at a film as a piece of art, not necessarily as a, what do you call it, a political piece or message piece or something like that, I feel that that can be a little bit more ironed out, like universal in terms of taste may vary. So like in that regard, I have trouble fully buying into the oh, you're a 40-year-old white guy, you didn't like your reasoning for not liking this particular movie is invalid. Like that seems, I don't want to say dismissive, but misguided.
Well, and again, I'm not saying that, we are neither Brie Larson that I know of, so, I don't know what she was thinking. But overall, I mean, I can agree that, like, okay, so if a movie is very, very good, yes, but it stars black people and has a black director and, really focuses on sort of non-normative experiences, or something like Moonlight. Yeah, you know what? That if we look that up on Rotten Tomatoes right now, it's probably got a really high score. So so that's safe. Like I think your really artistic movies are safe. But I'd say part of the problem is that like every year you're only going to have you're going to have like one or two movies that are Moonlight. You're not going to have a ton of Moonlights, but you are going to get 2.5 Tyler Perry movies a year. Now, am I saying that Tyler Perry movies are good? No, but I'm saying I think that my understanding is that they come from traditions that are not necessarily something I'm super aware of. And I think that I think that what happens is if a new Tyler Perry movie comes out, critics like get the pitchforks out because they're like, oh, this is going to be dumb, And am I saying they're good? I'm not necessarily saying they're good, but I am saying they're centered on an experience that a lot of the reviewers don't understand, and they come from like a tradition that a lot of them don't understand. And I think there tends to be less thoughtful criticism when you're sort of hitting the midpoint of movies, So it's like, yes, okay, I agree. There's some absolutely shitty, black movies out there, and there's some absolutely brilliant black movies out there. But I think in those, in all the kind of middle of the road films, like obviously there's a lot of, out of any, you're going to have 15 really good movies, and you're going to have 25 absolutely dreadful movies. But there's a lot to be learned from the stuff that like almost gets there, from all the like B movies and the C movies out there. And I don't know that those are a fair shake from critics. I don't know that those are, that they might be saying, okay, well, Proud Mary, I guess the action scenes were good, but, what the fuck is the rest of it? And it's like, well, maybe there's some real nuance there that they're kind of missing, would be my...
Maybe. I mean, when you're looking at a B movie like Proud Mary, which I still want to see,
Yes, to be fair, I have not seen Proud Mary.
I would watch anything with Taraji P. Henson in it, but I don't know, because I think like when you get to those sorts of movies you're talking about, like a Counterpoint, this is a big budget film, but look at pretty much every Transformers movie, universally panned. Each one gets somehow, which is perplexing. I don't know how that's possible. I mean, that's like the biggest white boy movie you could possibly have. I don't know. We may have to agree or disagree on that.
Sure.
I agreed with Brie Larson's statement. We should have more diversity. Now, the way she presented it, whether good or bad, there's a dismissive quality to her tone, which I think that's just Brie Larson. Like I've seen her in other interviews. I think that's just how she is. I think if a normal person would have just heard her thing and maybe rolled their eyes at most and then move on in their life, they thought she was being a wackadoo or whatever. But then you have the crazy people who get overly sensitive and upset and suddenly have to make YouTube videos day after day after day talking about how Brie Larson is a sexist and hates men.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where you get, like, to the point where, and this is ridiculous, Rotten Tomatoes recently changed their rating system in that users can't post a review for a movie until it comes out.
Sure.
Because people were
Seems
trying,
fair.
yeah, because people were trying to, I guess, lowball the Rotten Tomatoes user score, which
Oh, definitely.
in like the last Star Wars movie, and I can't remember if they tried to do it with Black Panther or not, but crazy internet users would do this, and so like critical response would be like 80%, user response would be like 22%, and it's like, okay, there's one of these does not compute. Like this doesn't make sense. And it's like these are like the sad individuals who are like, come on, guys, it's just, and I'm assuming it's mostly guys. I'm sure there might be one or two women in there too, but I think it's a safe bet to say it's probably mostly guys doing this.
It's all comic book guy from
yeah, right. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I hate to be a paranoid or a conspiracy theorist, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a couple people making multiple copies purposely to review. Like, how sad is your life, and how empty is it that you have to go on a user site to give a movie a bad review that you haven't seen and that you're probably not seeing, but then you probably end up will seeing just so you can say how bad it was.
Oh, definitely.
I mean,
all of those people who hate Captain Marvel went and saw Captain Marvel so that they could talk about how bad it was.
No, Jen, you don't understand. Disney bought out all those theaters. That's why it has over $1 billion. It was all Disney.
Good Lord.
I went to the theater and there was no one else there to see Captain Marvel. You
Yeah.
can take my word for it. I'm a guy on the internet.
I mean, I think there is, so, I will say I think there's a sort of rise of like the incel culture. I mean, if you haven't heard of it, it's men who feel in many ways, they feel entitled to women's bodies. They feel that they've denied, the kind of quote unquote like normal sexual experiences. They've been, and unfortunately, like sometimes they go and like murder a room full of people. Usually they're white though, so like it's just like it's like a problem with one guy. It's not a problem with like society. But so, they do, unfortunately, they have turned to murder, and usually when they do, they have some sort of crazy manifesto about how, like, no one's ever had sex with them, therefore they go shoot up a mall or whatever.
There was something like that in the news not that long ago.
Oh, yeah, it was...
I can't remember.
Which one was it?
I can't remember what it was, but there was something in his manifesto that was absolutely hilarious. Oh, not hilarious, but hilarious in how ridiculous, like, the logic train followed. Like, and I'm probably getting this wrong, but it's like, no one wanted to be my girlfriend, so I decided to kill everyone. Like, something like that. Like, seriously? And, of course, the article comments were also hilarious. Like, wow, he sounds like a real getter, a real catch. But
so there's the podcast out there called Reply All, which Gorehound had recommended to like a year and a half ago, and I've listened to almost every episode except the one he recommended to me. And they had an one last year about the term incel and how it started out. There was like this queer woman who had never had a girlfriend and was, basically created this whole internet community of people who just like never found someone to date. And they had like newsletters and whatever. And then, and it was like this kind of like nice thing in like 1996. But then of course what happens is, immunity is about people who have never dated anyone. Well, people then start dating someone and then they leave the group. So the people that stay in the group, kind of become more and more like toxic and they feel more and more rejected. And then they're in these internet, groups where it becomes this like toxic echo chamber. So I think a lot of the rise of that kind of like the incels and the murderers and all that is because they can get into these little toxic, these toxic echo chambers where they're just, and so, they don't have girlfriends and, they hate all women and they resent them for like not, for like not having sex with them, even though they bring nothing to the table, because they're awful. And anyway, so the long and the short of it is, I think a lot of the people who are praising people who shoot women in malls because they've never had a girlfriend, I think there's a big overlap between those men and the kind of troll culture and the people who are interested in, bringing down Captain Marvel for the simple fact that, like, it really bothers them that, I don't know, Brie Larson exists, or that they're girling up like a movie. Like, what other superhero movie do they have to watch except all the other ones? Like, it's just, it's a very like toxic echo chamber. So, and I don't want to, so I think you can kind of, when you're looking at like the criticism of, women or diversity in Hollywood, I think there's a certain percentage, let's say 3%, that's just absolutely toxic. Just cut them all out. But then I think there's kind of a larger part where they're like, okay, well, it does make me uncomfortable when we're not about me, and I think that's kind of that's the group that we, will find more likelihood of finding common. And I think a group that's, worth kind of reaching out to and saying, okay, hey, I know it's uncomfortable to like really, sit down and watch a movie about Hispanic people or whatever, but like good stuff will happen if you do this. And I think that's the group that like, not that the other group is not worth talking about, but I also think that some of them are, the only way they're going to be broken of that is if somebody takes away their internet.
Yeah. One thing I can't help but notice, and I have a theory on this, and I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, is when Wonder Woman came out, I honestly don't remember any controversy about that movie, superhero movie being a female hero or any of that. I remember it just came out, was a movie, did well, and people moved on. Whereas Captain Marvel and the Ghostbusters 2016 had that controversy kind of surrounding it. And my only thought is, like, in the marketing materials for Wonder Woman, they didn't highlight it, or they didn't like talk it up like, yeah, this is a feminist movie, you have to watch this movie, all women should see this movie, and rah rah girl power and all of that, which like they just played it straight like, this is a movie, it's a superhero movie, watch it, you schmucks, because this is the type of movie you like. Just feed the nerds like watching superhero films. And with Ghostbusters especially, Captain Marvel not as much, but a little bit, they had that sort of agenda-driven drive and marketing push. And with Ghostbusters, I really honestly think that's one of the reasons why it kind of bombed at the box office, because no one wants to be guilted into seeing a movie. Just a little weird theory I have. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So, I think it's also good to remember, we can say, Ghostbusters bombed, but, looking it up right now, I mean, it made $229 million. And it's not like it, this isn't some, like, Gone in a Weekend sort of movie. But I would
say... Hollywood accounting is weird and interesting.
Oh,
Ghostbusters
sure.
actually lost money, the 2016 film. It sounded like it made good money, but I'm going to look something up here really because I don't have it at my hands here. I mean,
here's my theory though. If you want to know what the difference is between the two movies,
sure.
And I'm going to be really blunt here. Here's the difference. They want to fuck Wonder Woman, and they were mad that they didn't want to fuck the Ghostbusters.
But then, what's explaining about Captain Marvel?
They want to fuck her a little bit, but not as much as they wanted to fuck Wonder Woman. So what's interesting is, I think, if you look at something like Ghostbusters, right? I mean, I 500% believe this. Like, they're all great and they're funny and they're, wonderful ladies, but they were not in the slightest sex. To be fair, I also want to include, I don't think that Wonder Woman was sexualized. I think she was, given, sidebar. In her own movie, she was given a full outfit that good, yes, it kept the traditional elements of her outfit, but it wasn't just, a bustier, that would never support her breasts while she was running. Like, it was actual armor that was just in the shape of this, like, traditional costume. Mm-hmm. Ghostbusters, you've got, women who are, for Hollywood, 100 years old. They are all wearing baggy suits, like baggy, baggy
the
outfits.
Jumpsuits,
like,
yeah.
Right. Like, they're being funny, and, like, one of them is, like, interested in a dude, but, like, none of them are, like, available to men sexually. And that drives men crazy. Even men that I would consider, kind of good guys who I think understand the importance of having women in movies. I think there's a certain extent to which, they're so used to kind of getting the female gaze. Getting the male gaze on female characters. And I think when you take that away, when you make it so that they can't possibly watch the movie and get an erection, I think that makes some dudes very uncomfortable.
Maybe. I'm sure there's no doubt that that played a part in some of it, but that doesn't explain why women didn't go and see it. I don't know. That's my theory. I'm going to stand by it for right now.
I mean, and some of it may have to do with, like, you know, what was going on in the world, what was happening in politics, what time of year it was. I mean, all of that, I'm sure, plays into it, too.
Oh, sure.
But, I will say I think there are guys who were really mad about Captain Marvel who weren't as mad about Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman was wearing a short skirt.
I'm sure there are folks out there that were like that. But to go back to your Ghostbusters thing, it made $229 million against the $144 million budget, which usually for a movie to break even, it needs to make 3 times its budget amount, which this movie did not. So it unfortunately was, which is why we're not getting a sequel, which was a shame because even though Ghostbusters 2016 had its issues, I think it had a good solid foundation that they could have corrected any issues in a part 2. But
absolutely,
now we're getting the new movie next year. It's
the one movie
that's supposedly a direct sequel to Ghostbusters 2, because that's all what we need to see is 80-year-old men running around pretending to be Ghostbusters.
Now, who is going to be in that? Is it all of the alive ones?
Well, that's the big mystery at the moment. No one quite knows. The rumor is that the original cast is going to come back, but there hasn't been any announcements for that. If that was going to be the case, you think they would plaster that news front and center, up front, like Bill Murray's back and Dan Aykroyd's back and I can't think of his name, Winston, Ernie Hudson is back. You think you'd really want to market that like hardcore, but or you'd want to get those guys locked in early on, but no, there's nothing. Like the only thing we're getting is like all the supported cast rumors of casting that's happening. So I don't know what's going on with
honest to God, hope the movie comes out. They include none of the original cast. They're just like, no, guys, it's a sequel. It's Bill Murray if you squint.
I would applaud that so much. But you know what? Here's the thing on this. The internet is going crazy with like, oh yeah, it's going to be so much better than 2016. It might not. I don't know. But I guarantee you, those same people, when the trailers start hitting and they see things they don't like, because fans are now entitled, they feel they own the stuff. Those people who are like, yeah, this movie, are going to turn into, this movie sucks. I mean, because that's how fans work. And as you mentioned earlier, fans ruin everything.
And I will say, I think that is part of it. I mean, I also will say, I think 20 years ago, you had just as many people who were sexist and racist and what have you. But you didn't always get to hear about it. You know, every time a movie came out, you didn't see thousands of tweets about, I don't understand why Jordan Peele won't cast white actors in his movies.
Oh, because he's clearly a racist, don't you know?
Right, exactly. But, you didn't see any of that. So it's like, I think that's, I definitely will say, I do think that's part of it. Same thing with the echo chambers and all that. But so that's part of it. And I do think you're right. Like, fans do feel a certain amount of, like, entitled to tweet at directors or, have them bring back characters they love or what have you. And I think... and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, like, all fans are toxic, because I don't believe that. I think plenty of people understand that, like, TV is on TV, and, like, they might tweet their friends about it, but they're not, like, tweeting, they're not, like, going to conventions and asking the actors weird questions, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of people who just have, like, a healthy relationship, or they, like, maybe they have, like, a Harry Potter poster up in their house or whatever, but they're not, like, whatever. They're not, like, being weird about it.
They have a sense of, they have the thing called reality that they cling to.
Right. And they also understand that, like, I think plenty of people do understand that, like, what happens on the TV does not really affect them. Like, yes, it sucks when the show goes a different way than you want it to, or, like, if you want two characters to get together and they don't, like, that can be really obnoxious. And certainly there are creators out there who will, tease relationships they never intend to follow through on, or will promise, great storylines they're not going to really, pick up or whatever. But at the same time, like, I think I do think there are a lot of people out there who just like don't understand that like the creator is not their servant.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, honestly, like if I were if I created a TV show, I'd have like an intern running my Twitter, and all we would ever say is like, so did 8 o'clock. And like if people tweeted at me and were like, okay, well, why didn't, you know, this happen or that happen? I would just fucking block them. I would just like never interact with them. I would not, because I can't imagine how much like weird pressure they get from like the fan, you know, the 5% of fans who just don't understand that like ultimately, you know, people are creating movies and they want them to be art, but also like they want to go home at the end of the day and see their kids. They don't want to just sit there and address every possible way in which the show has or movie has failed to, you know, exactly resolve,
And that's the thing I don't quite get with people. It's like, you don't like something with the show, like, so you're going to harass the people involved with it. Like, what was it? Leslie Jones was driven off of Twitter because people were attacking her because of Ghostbusters. Like, honestly, today, who cares? If you don't like it, it's fine. Why are you punishing people for doing a job that has really no impact on your life whatsoever?
That is pretty, like, that is pretty horrifying. And like I said, am I saying that the sort of bad reactions and bad faith arguments from people who are like against diversity in Hollywood, am I saying they're all those people? A good portion of them are, you know?
Let's get back to the happy world of racial tensions.
Perfect.
I could understand, like, there's a big thing nowadays when there's a lot of colorblind casting that goes on in movies, especially adaptations. Like for example, as you mentioned, I watched the TV show The Flash, and in the show and in the comics, the Flash's main squeeze is her name is Iris, and in the comics, Iris is white. On the show, Iris is black.
I bet people behaved well.
Now I think people don't care, but when it was first revealed, they were not happy about it. And I'm thinking, who cares? Because the flip side is we got the wonderful Jesse Martin to play her father, who's like...
I love Jesse Martin.
Yeah, he's great. He's great on the show. He's like the TV dad. So you have this colorblind casting that people just don't like. And on one hand, I get some of the argument, because like, well, that's not how like the character is represented in the source material. I can understand that argument. Like, okay, whatever. I mean, it's an adaptation, but I kind of understand it on a logical point of view. But at the same time, there's nothing about that character that's inherently like, this has to be a white character. Like, there's nothing that says like, this has to be white. Like, but at the same time, you get those idiots to say like, well, I'm for when they cast a white guy as Black Panther. And you see, Black Panther, I'm using a bunch of superhero terms because that's what I know, and that's what the mainstream media is all about now. Or
they love superheroes.
They do. I can't wait for that bubble to burst. I really can't wait for that bubble to burst.
You are one of the reasons they keep making these shows. You watch all of them on the CW.
You know, I like the shows. It's just these big movies, it's just exhausting. Like, I have different expectations from TV shows than I do of movies.
There's too many, I'm going to say it, too many Marvel movies now.
They're soulless cash grabs.
I cannot track them anymore.
Like, they're soulless, there's nothing to them. They're 4-quadrant movies meant to be offered to the most diverse audience ever. And they try to be offered to everyone, which means they're really for no one. And I do agree with you that because they're trying to appeal to the broadest possible audience, they aren't going to do anything that's going to upset China, and China had a lot of official, policies in terms of, so they're never going to make, the Black Widow a lesbian, like they're just not going to do it. And that's too bad. I think you're right. By trying to appeal to very broad audiences, they end up missing out on a lot of nuance. And we so far we've only really talked about racial diversity and gender diversity in shows. But I think it's also important to say while there's enough diversity in shows in terms of African American characters,
at least there is some representation. There's entire groups of people that you just don't, you don't see a lot of Middle Easterners on TV. You
unless they're
hardly
the bad guys.
well, and you hardly ever see like disabled characters on TV. There's that one show, what is it, Speechless, which I've never watched,
Oh yeah,
but I hear it's very good. I haven't seen it, but it's okay. So you've got like one.
And I think there's a new show coming out because I see on the CW where the main character is blind.
Well, that'd be cool, right?
I can't think what the
And
name
I
of the
know
show is, but anyway.
there was a show on ABC Family about like a deaf high school or something.
Oh yeah, with Leah, wasn't Leah Thompson in it?
Maybe, but so obviously I never watched it, which is too bad. But I don't have cable. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of different ways in which, like, the experiences of the people in the real world are not being reflected on the TV, and I think that's a real shame. I think there's a lot of stuff out there that there's a lot of experiences out there that are very interesting that we don't get to see reflected in media.
Right.
And,
or at least not in like main movies.
Right.
It's
sure.
You have to find. You kind of have to seek it out.
That's true. They're making strides, and like I know, obviously things can be a little different when you're reading like, I don't know, independent comics versus mainstream comics or whatever. There's stuff out there, but there can always be more, and there can always it's not enough to just have, like, because you mentioned racial blind casting, which I think is great. I think back to, like, do you remember when they did a version of Cinderella in the 90s that had Brandy?
Oh yeah, yeah. And was it Queen Latifah?
No. Whoopi Goldberg and Victor Garber had given birth to like an Asian prince who I think has been in nothing else. I looked up a few years ago. I think he's been in basically no other thing, but. But it was like, it was goofy, but it was like, honestly, it didn't matter. Like, it was fine.
That's,
like,
now just to go back a second,
right.
For one, for all the people who are going to accuse me of racism, I'm not confused with Queen Latifah with Whoopi Goldberg, but she was in something that was Cinderella or Wizard of Oz around that same time.
Oh, was she?
I thought so. Anyway, but your sentence of Whoopi Goldberg and Victor Garber had an Asian baby, it's just a very surreal moment I'm picturing in my mind here, just from a logic point of view, not like a casting point of view.
Right.
But.
Right. I mean, obviously, and it's heightened reality, but, at the same time, like, audiences could kind of blink at that. But I think it's the same way that, like, sometimes we know the actress is pregnant, but the character is not pregnant.
Right.
And we know she doesn't actually have to carry around giant purses or whatever. But, like, people are just kind of like, okay, I get it. Like, this is not my first day watching the television. Like, I understand. And I think the same way, like, but I was going to say, so it's not just enough to, like, do more racial blind casting. I think that's good. I think that's a good first start, but I think it's also important to make sure you have, like, a diverse writer's room who can write characters that are, like, meant to be Hispanic or meant to be, meant to be black or meant to be, or maybe they cast them, but then they make sure somebody who represents that experience can kind of write storylines where it feels very specific. I think there's a lot of good that happens when you do that.
Right. You make a good point about, especially with the writer's room. I wonder, I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a second, where does that line get crossed in terms of hiring someone because they want to have storylines that deal with that experience versus hiring someone because the show is about something and they want someone to speak to their strengths there?
Sure. I mean, I think you're creating kind of a false dichotomy, right? Like, you can say, okay, we need to make sure that there are African Americans on this writing staff because we have African American characters. Mm-hmm. But to assume that then they aren't also bringing the ability to write about love or to write about
I guess I didn't,
or whatever the is too.
I guess I didn't mean to suggest that necessarily, but I mean, I guess I'm saying like hiring writer X because they're black but have typically done romance writing versus writer Y who's done, say, sci-fi writing, and this is a sci-fi show. I mean, not that the other writer can't go back. I guess it's just like one of those, because I've seen that argument before that we need to have a diverse writing staff. And I think you hire the best person for the job, but if you do want to have storylines centering on a particular experience, either if you have a writer that has had that experience, great, or if you've had or if you do get someone to what's the word I'm looking
like
to consult on it.
Yeah,
That'd be
like
also good.
right, and they're right. You can bring in consultants. I think that's what's but making sure that you're not like an all white. I have no idea, but if the writing room for Empire was all white, that would be very disappointing, and I think you'd be really missing out on something there. And I think, I will say, I think, yes, I think you possibly overcorrect and pick people who are, less qualified, maybe in terms of the fact that people who are not all the same are not. So oftentimes, as with so there was a time when they like struck down laws in terms of, it used to be that you could only have like white firefighters, and then they struck down laws, and so then they had to make it where you didn't just pick the fire captain based off of how long you had been a firefighter, because if you weren't letting black firefighters into firefighting, then that's not fair to say, okay, well then for the next 30 years after we let them, none of them get to be captain. So I think it's good to like remember that there are other experiences and other, information. And if previously the only people with experience are people who are all white, or, I think a lot of times, like I really like NBC comedies, but a lot of times the people who are writing for NBC comedies, not exclusively, but a lot of them are all like Harvard dudes who wrote for that one magazine.
Oh, like National Lampoon? Is that Harvard?
Yeah, exactly, right. Where it's like they all came from the same experience. And I think that sometimes you can see that in shows if you're watching a lot of them. You can see where like it's the same, not the same guy, but it's basically the same guy, and maybe it does mean you bring in somebody who's like known for romance shows on your sci-fi show, because you don't just need, because coming back down to it, you don't need like an echo chamber of like only people who have worked in a traditionally monolithic sort of in monolithic writers. So it's tough to look at course correcting for a century of a very specific type of Hollywood, and then say, well, what about the white dudes from Harvard? Where? Well, they'll be fine. They'll get hired. I'm not worried. Like, there will always be a place for white dudes with Harvard educations.
Yeah. I think it's part of that is that, for hundreds of years, obviously people who were white had the advantage.
Still.
I'm getting there.
Sure.
And still have that today, but like as we progress, of color are giving more and more strides, and there's almost that fear that they're gaining an equal footing right now. That means they're taking something away from me. It's like, no, they just want to have what you have.
Right. Oh, definitely. And anytime people talk, white people talk about like, oh, soon we're going to be a minority in our own country, you have to go, what, have minorities been treated badly? Why would you be worried about it? Like,
I never thought of it from that perspective.
Okay, to be fair, I stole that from a tweet. Like, I don't want people to think I'm clever. I promise you I am not. It was a roundup of tweets on BuzzFeed.
Yeah, it's I don't know. But Getting back to Hollywood, one of the issues I have with, say, a movie like Black Panther and Captain Marvel, is that they're definitely promoting, hey, look, a black superhero, and they try to, or a superhero, and they're trying to reach out to those demographics, like, hey, come see our movie because this one's about you, and that's great. But the problem I have is it seems so fake on Disney's part, because honestly, let's be honest, Disney doesn't care anything about diversity. All they care are dollars and cents, and they could give this promotional push. Like I think they brought in impoverished girls, like young girls, to come see Captain Marvel. It's like a gesture, and that's nice. But after they see the movie, they're still going to be impoverished. Why don't you take your billions of dollars and do something positive, like set a community center, or I don't know. That's the first thing that came to mind. It's probably an idea, but I'm not a charity organizer. It just seems kind of artificial. We have this like conglomerate and this big company that's trying to promote like, hey, look at us, we're so great. No, you just want money. Like,
well, sure. I mean, under capitalism, you are not going to have like true benevolence, and you know what? that is the price we pay to have capitalism. Like, no, I definitely agree. I don't think Disney cares about impoverished girls watching Captain Marvel, and obviously they're doing that as a publicity stunt. But for those girls, they had a nice day at the movies. You know, it's hard to get too upset about that. So, you know, anyway, I totally don't think that Disney cares about diversity per se, but I do think that it's important, and I think it is something worth considering. You know, they didn't make Black Panther out of the goodness of their heart. They made Black Panther because they knew Black Panther would make a shit ton of money. And that's important, because I think, you know, I've read, for instance, that, like, Hispanic people are actually, like, the biggest, so they're not the biggest portion of America, but, like, they're the biggest portion of movie-going audiences in most demographics. Like, they just go to the movies more than everybody else, you know, by a fair margin. So, you know, but there's almost no movies that are, like, about the Hispanic experience, at least, like, mainstream at the AMC movies.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that immediately comes to mind.
I mean, I'm not going to say there's been none, but how many have there been? Oh, there's going to be that one starring the lady from Jane the Virgin, where she, like, shoots a bunch of people, and I can't really stand movies that are just about shooting a bunch of people, but she looks great in it, in the previews I've seen. But
Gina Rodriguez. I hope she has a good career.
I do, too. I first saw her in a movie called, what was it called? Like, Philly Brown or something, and she was basically like this, like, young rapper who wanted to make it in rapping, you know, and I think she was from Philadelphia, if I'm remembering correctly, about like 6 years ago, so this was before Jane the Virgin, and I remember seeing it and being like, oh, good, she's gonna be good one day, like, she's gonna be, you know, and she was a pretty good rapper, so if she ever decides to take that up, that could be a good fallback career. Anyway, but so no, but I'm just saying, like, it's, if all they're doing is following where they think dollars are, I think that's great, because I don't think that, like, benevolence is going to get us to a more diverse Hollywood. I think, like, dollars are going to a more diverse Hollywood.
Like, I guess part of my frustration with all that is that, you know, they're big on, like, female-led movies. That's the future. That's what we got to do more of, and we got to champion them. And, like, last year there was a movie that came out, pretty good reviews, called Annihilation with Natalie Portman. It's a sci-fi film.
Yeah.
Nobody saw it, except, I guess, the Garhan and I, because we did a podcast on it. Like, and this movie had 4 female characters, also starred Gina Rodriguez. Hey, we should just call this the Gina Rodriguez podcast. Had 4 female characters, 4 main female characters. All were educated, intelligent, each had agency, each were well developed. This should have been a movie that, you know, the Hollywood and female actresses and activists should have, like, championed. Like, yes, go see this. This is exactly what we need. But it also came out, like, right in the middle of the Me Too movement gained, like, the big push, and, like, no one went to go see it. And it's like, why are they not doing this? And then it occurred to me, because they don't care about these smaller movies. They just want the big budget, mass market, get your popcorn munchers in the seats. That's what they want. That's what they care about, because that brings in the money, and that makes me sad. Oh,
definitely. I think. I mean, and to be fair, that was like a sci-fi movie, and sci-fi movies don't always do well, and, you know, whatever. But you know, and it was a brand, as far as I remember, it was a brand new property. It wasn't like a based off of anything. So, you know, multiple things going on there. But no, I agree. I think it would be great if people were willing to throw their money at smaller movies. Absolutely. But a lot of smaller movies don't do well. I mean, some big movies don't do well. Think about, what was that? Whatever the last King Arthur movie to come out was terribly received.
Yeah, and the Robin Hood movie also was terrible. I saw that King Arthur movie. It wasn't as bad as people made it out to be, but it wasn't particularly good.
Right. And honestly, if we didn't do another King Arthur, like, property for the next 100 years, we'd still have enough.
Yeah.
But you know, anyway, so, no, yeah, it would be good to get more butts and seats for smaller movies. Absolutely.
I mean, it wasn't even like no one wanted to talk about it. And, like, even if it was a smaller movie, like, I'm surprised it, like, never came up that this, hey, you guys see this one, because this is exactly what we're talking about. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying. It's a smaller movie, and it's kind of a weirdy, bizarre sci-fi movie, but I don't know. I
Okay,
don't
I
know.
looked it up. That movie with Gina Rodriguez already came out like 2 months ago. It came out February 1st. So I guess it did not make a lot of much of a splash. But I
Well,
felt like I kept seeing previews for it.
I think I saw a couple previews too. You have to remember, uh, January and to a certain extent February is like a dumping ground for movies that studios want to get rid of. Like they realize, ugh, we're not going to do anything with these movies, so we'll bring it out after Oscar season, and then before the mid spring blockbuster season starts, and we'll just release them because they're contractually obligated to release them, and
Hmm.
then it'll have its couple weeks in the audience in the theaters. We'll probably make back budget because usually those movies are really cheap to make, and then we'll take that money that we make and make Avengers number 73, and then people will be happy.
Yeah, I feel like March used to be sort of a dumping ground, but do remember, I mean, I feel like now March is not as much of a dumping ground.
No, it's not because there are so many blockbuster movies that get released now
Hmm.
that these films need to come out sooner and sooner so they're not competing with one another. I mean, I think, like, for example, Black Panther came out in February clearly to capitalize on Black History Month. Makes total sense. Good job, marketing team.
Hmm.
And plus, it was the only really blockbuster, so that movie was destined to make buku bucks. Marvel logo on it. Putting Marvel on anything is a license to print money. But same thing with Captain Marvel coming out during Women's History Month. That was totally intentional, and not much competition. Like Captain Marvel is probably the first blockbuster of the blockbuster season, I would say. But yeah,
Oh, definitely.
I mean it. The summer season has creeped earlier and earlier and earlier as we went along. Do you remember the first Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser?
I do.
That came out in late April in 1999. And I remember this because I remember reading an article at the time. People were like, wow, this movie's coming out early for what would be a blockbuster. That's so weird. But it did gangbusters. And part of the reason was because it was released just a few weeks before Star Wars, the first of one of the prequels, and people were really gearing up for a big blockbuster movie. And this served as a perfect appetizer for that. And I think ever since then, studios started creeping their movies into April, and now they're starting to creep them into March. I mean, the Avengers Endgame is coming out at the end of April, when that should easily be a May, but I don't know.
How much money do you think that's going to make?
$5 billion. I'm
I'm
exaggerating.
hoping I'm hoping at that point. So I'd see whatever like Black Panther and I'd probably see whatever Captain Marvel came out after this. But I'm hoping this can kind of be like the break from Marvel movies. Like we're going to see Avengers Endgame. I definitely, some characters will die and then I'm hoping I can just take a break for like 6 movies and just like not watch a Marvel movie for a while.
You know, to bring that up because right after the Avengers movie comes out, the next Spider-Man movie is coming out a few months later. But
But I never saw the first one, so I'm free.
but then after that, there's nothing planned. I mean,
Wait, really?
well, they have like placeholders, like we're going to have to release a Marvel movie here and here and here, but they haven't announced what any of those movies are. There's some like there's some predictions of what they're going to be, like probably a sequel to Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and they're already in production of making a Black Widow movie, but none of it's announced. But the next one isn't scheduled to come out until next year. Like Marvel's intentionally taking a break just for at least a year before they release the next one. Like they're
Hmm.
being very secretive about their next plans. And from what I've heard, after this Endgame, this is going to be the like a definitive like jumping off point. Like boom, our story's over, but we're still going to be making the movies. Like this is the conclusion to all the movies up to this point.
That would be phenomenal because I will say it was very strange to me that they were releasing these movies with Spider-Man, the previews with Spider-Man and just being like Spider-Man goes on a wacky, summer trip. So like clearly everything's fine,
Well,
which really takes out some of the dramatic tension.
well, here's the thing. Like, I love how these news agencies, and we're going, but that's all right. These news agencies, like
We'll come back.
movie websites and things, are saying like, I can't believe Marvel would spoil. Like, we released the Spider-Man trailers before the Avengers. They're spoiling that Spider-Man. Well, no shit. Of course he's going to live. They're not just going to. Marvel worked too hard to get their crown jewel back into their little universe to just use them for one movie and not anything else. Your favorite characters will be fine at the end of this. Which I think is a problem with Hollywood in general, is that now with the internet, the mystery behind the curtain of movie making is virtually gone. You know that these actors are signed up for 9 films or something, and so you know that like up to this point, what's his name, Chris Evans, he's going to be fine. Nothing bad is going to happen to his character, or his buddy is going to be fine. Nothing's going to happen to them because they have these contracts for all these movies, and I don't know, it just kind of sucks some of the tension out of like, ooh, what can happen? Other than, I don't know. As you can see, cynical towards modern movie making.
It is tough compared to, so I think there's always been people who, there's been paparazzi and whatever, and they're reporting on, movies and that kind of thing. But now there's also Twitter, so I feel like it's very hard. We're coming on the end of Game of Thrones, maybe one day. And at the end of, so they're doing all this shooting, and then, this is not something I follow, because I tend to, I don't tend to read these until the previews come out. I don't want to see, I don't want to, but whatever. But people who are interested, they'll be reporting, oh, so-and-so's in Ireland right now. And, so it definitely could lose some attention, because it's like no one can be anonymous anymore. None of these actors, there's going to be someone from the crew or somebody, somebody's going to tweet something, or somebody saw a picture of something from the beach or whatever. I'm sure, I can guarantee you right now, the last scene of Game of Thrones is filmed indoors. Let me tell you, whatever that last scene is going to be, and I have some theories, it will be filmed indoors.
I don't Game of Thrones. All I know is from what the Kiwi tells me and the commercials I've seen, but
well, so I don't know if so you've heard of it, so it's popular.
Yeah.
It is the monolith.
I'll watch the final season. Maybe she could catch me up during the first couple minutes of the new season, so I'm not totally lost.
Okay, that's very upsetting. I don't have time to go into why that's upsetting.
I actually stole that joke from an uncle about a year or so ago.
God, I think we'd be better podcasters if we came up with our own material.
But we can't do that.
Ugh, it's hard.
We're unoriginal hacks.
Thank you. Okay, so unoriginal hacks. I think we should probably wrap up fairly soon.
I'm getting tired.
Yeah. Also, we forgot about the topic. We got a little sidetracked because we're just so passionate about Marvel.
Are we though?
I'm passionately tired of having to know about it.
Fair enough. So, we talked quite a bit here about a discussion we've had about race and gender in Hollywood movie making. I think we solved all the problems. It's going to be clear sailing from here on out.
Right. The clear sailing is more diversity. Just do it. I don't care what the trolls on 4chan say. Just do it. It'll be fine. It only hurts a little. So just fix that.
Yeah, and it's all still relatively new, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. So this too shall pass, and another 20 years maybe won't think twice. Superhero movie. They still make superhero movies? That's what my grandpa used to watch. But
oh my god. It is crazy to think, our grandparents were watching spaghetti westerns, and when was the last time they made a western? Well, actually, but it was just the one.
They're not a full-on genre the way they used to.
It would be interesting to listen to, it'd be interesting to be a kid 50 years from now and be like, oh, listen to my grandpa talking about, stupid super movies. I don't care about that. I only care about forehead movies that they implant in our foreheads.
Oh, God. Don't. Yeah, that's going to be a thing, isn't it?
All right. Well,
all right.
So I'm glad we solved racism. So let's maybe next week we'll tackle retirement accounts with Gorehound.
Yeah, that excellent. He'll tell us all we need to do. So, all right. I guess I'm out. I'm Nick.
I'm Jen.
And this is the All New Culture Cast. We'll see you next week, hopefully with a more focused episode. You've been listening to the All New Culture Cast, where every episode is all new. Check out new episodes and our back catalog at allnewculturecast.libsyn.com. We could also be found on iTunes. The All New Culturecast, a Saltwater production, copyright 2019. Thanks for listening.
So, once again, fans ruin everything for creators.
They do.
Absolutely.
I've argued this for years.